All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to welcome everyone tonight to the Saint Constantine School Denver Metro webinar that you guys have all chosen to attend tonight. Thank you all for that. Um, I just want to let you guys know that we are recording this webinar so that people can view it at a later time. Quickly, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Shannon Bittet, and I attend the parish of Saints Peter and Paul in Boulder. I've been the chairperson of this committee since 2020. So, what I would like to share with our greater community is that the hope and the heart of our committee these last 3 years has been to open a school that's rooted in orthodoxy that holistically teaches to the mind, body, and soul of each child. And we now have this great privilege and honor of partnering with the Saint Constantine School that originally has opened up in Houston a few years back. Um, and what you guys will learn, I hope, and see is that they offer that and so much more. Um, so quickly, I want to introduce the central office leaders that we have here with us tonight. So we have Vice President of Schools, Kate Gilbert, Vice President of Finance, Emily Kazradzi, Vice President of Development, Annie Hickman, and Central Office Coordinator, Emily Blastel. So each of them will have the opportunity to share with everyone here on the benefits and advantages of a network model school, how it works, the central office and their role in providing back-end support for us with administration, finance, and fundraising. And then towards the end, we'll open it up for a Q&A. If you have any questions that you would like to submit to us, please do so in the chat and we'll be sure to address them at the end. And we'll also answer the questions that were submitted to us from the survey we sent out a few weeks ago. So without further ado, I would like to invite Father David Thatcher to go ahead and offer an opening prayer for us.
Greetings, everyone, in the name of our risen Lord Jesus Christ. It is our Pascha Easter season, and so I want to greet everyone with Christ is risen.
Truly is risen.
He's risen.
Truly is risen, or we can do other languages too, right? Almasia kam, hakam, right? Christos anesti, alethos anesti. We can keep going. I won't burn up all the time. But and of course Christos Voskresli, because we're OCA. So right. All right. Well, very good. Let us pray to the Lord. Lord, have mercy. Well, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, accept our prayers, bless the good intentions and the work of us, thy servants, in this task of establishing an Orthodox classical school in Denver Metro. Even as we have begun it for thy glory, so now enable us to complete it without obstacle. Thank you for all those who have labored to bring this Orthodox classical school into being, and add to their number those whom thou hast chosen to fulfill this work. Bless those who have become good stewards and supporters of the Saint Constantine School of Denver Metro, and add to their number. And now, O Lord, guide our hands, our minds, our hearts. By the power of thy most Holy Spirit, may our labors be peacefully accomplished. For thine it is to show mercy, and to save us, O our God, and unto thee do we send up glory, together with thy Father, who's from everlasting, and then all holy, good, and life-giving Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father.
You're welcome. Very good.
So
it's been a
Well,
privilege to be a part of this for a small time. I wasn't there at the beginning, and I'm looks like I won't be there at the end, and I don't know. God knows what all our roles will be, but it's been a tremendous beginning, and I would just encourage us, that our faith, our Christian faith, is fueled by the unbelievable, by the improbable. Um, our faith is, Tertullian is sort of infamously noted as an ancient Christian writer for saying, "I believe Christianity because it's absurd." I don't know that we're that far down the road, in terms of our understanding of the task of establishing an Orthodox classical school here in Denver Metro, but it's tough. And it would be easy to lose faith. It would be easy to say, nah, to get cynical, to say, oh, that's just not going to work for us. And we can list all sorts of reasons. But I really believe that God is calling us to do this, and that there are absolutely profoundly gospel reasons why we should do this. And we should do it because of our faith in God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We should do it because of our faith in what he has done in the creation that unfolds before us and that is presented to us in the best of educational traditions, whether they be the arts or the sciences and so on. Whatever title or label we want to get, trivium, quadrivium, and all that stuff. But and then, so we have our faith, we have our God, we have his creation, we have one another, we have a calling as a church. I'm sure that when all those parochial schools were being established in the late 19th century and the early 20th century within the Roman communion, that it wasn't easy. I don't think it was easy. And I don't know that it will be easy here, but God is with us. And I really believe that if nothing else, that this effort will lay a foundation for what it means to be great parents, to be faithful as a church, to our calling to be disciples, right? That word disciple that we first really get in Acts chapter 11, I think, somewhere in there. And that means learner, right? Disciple means a learner. And so let us learn of him. And so I'll just give it back to you. And Shannon, thank you very much.
thank you, Father, so much for your opening remarks. Um, we're going to go ahead and pass it on to Emily Blastel, who's actually going to be navigating through the meeting here for us.
Hello. I'm actually going to quickly, just go ahead and hand it off to Kate to begin. She's going to be talking to us kind of about the advantages of becoming a Saint Constantine branch campus. And then she'll pass it off to Emily Kay, who is going to get into more the nitty gritty of that, the benefits of a network model, what that means. Operational wise, what is the Houston a central office's responsibilities and all that. And then she's going to pass it to Annie, who's going to talk about our fundraising values and what it looks like. Obviously, schools cost a lot of money, and it doesn't just come from tuition. So he's played a huge role in the fundraising and development aspect over the past few years for the school. And then we'll open up to questions. We already have some really great questions from the poll. So Kate, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right, thank you. Well, my name is Kate Gilbert. I'm the Vice President of Schools. I am also the founding Houston head of school. So I was on the original 4-person team who started Saint Constantine in Houston. And my role was everything to do with our pre-K through 12th grade school. I don't know how familiar all of us are with the Houston schools, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about our history and who we are and how we got started, because I think that's the best way for you to sort of get a picture for what we're doing. and what our goals are and why we would be interested in partnering to start a school in Denver. So um, as I mentioned, my role was our pre-K through 12th grade school. Now, in most places, that would be the whole thing, but we're a big mission, and so we also run an undergraduate college, and we're about to launch a master's degree out of that college as well. So, our founding president, Dr. John Mark Reynolds, has said we're K through 16. Well, we're about to be K through 20, or however that works. um, and many of us came from higher education. So my background was working in a couple different universities. And the job I had immediately starting before starting Saint Constantine was director of dual enrollment for Houston Baptist, now Houston Christian University. And our president, Dr. Reynolds, was the provost. So he was the chief academic officer, which meant that he was the vice president that was over all of the academic side of the university. And during his time as the provost, he controlled 1/3 of the university budget. That's a lot of money, but it also means that 2/3 of the university budget was being spent elsewhere, not in the classroom, not on teachers. Those of you who are familiar with college tuition will know that that means 2/3 of college tuition that's driving people into debt and causing a lot of hardship for our students who are wanting to study at university isn't being spent on their classroom. And so as we started to think about alternatives, we started looking down. We started saying, like, how did the university system become broken? And what can we do to fix it? And so Dr. Reynolds got this idea that we needed to break college education out from these giant, massive universities and make it a part of our communities again. And the way to do that was to unite it with a K-12 school. Well, at the same time, he was approached by a group of Orthodox priests and donors who were interested in starting an Orthodox school here in Houston. As you know, there aren't very many Orthodox schools left in the United States. I read when I was doing research about a lot of these, projects surrounding the school, that there were once 200 Orthodox schools within the Greek Archdiocese alone, but now there's probably about 12 left. And some of those are just language schools. So that's within the Greeks. There are a few other Antiochian, there are a few other Orthodox schools, but they're very small and few, far between. And so our priests and our donors felt like it was time for the Orthodox to invest in education. And there's a really good reason for this. Many of our priests had noticed, as I'm sure any priest would tell you, that it's very, very hard to combat a culture that is working against you if you only see your students for a few hours a week, which is all most priests get with their kids. They might get a family night, they'll get Sunday mornings, an event or a special holiday or something like that, but the kids are in school 40 hours a week. And so if you have a school that is working against the values and beliefs of the church, it's just very, very difficult to combat that. And so much of the spiritual and moral formation of our children happens in schools. I believe that that is what happens at school. Whether a school will claim it or not, they are going to shape our students morally and spiritually because they can't help it. They have to be able to pass along ideals. And if they think they're not doing that, they still are. And so my background is actually in theological education and spiritual formation. And the reason I got involved in education is because I believe it is the most powerful place for forming the souls of children. Family has the primary role. Church has the most, in one way, significant role. But education is this long, pervading, and powerful force that if it doesn't work for our children, will work against them. And so as we were starting St. Constantine, we were very aware of this. And our very first mission as a school was to be the kind of place that makes way for the work of the church. We aren't a church, but as an Orthodox school, we are forming souls who are ready for the ministry of divine liturgy, who are ready for the ministry of Sunday morning. They understand the church year and they participate fully in what it means. My own children are very young. I have a 6 and 4 and a 2-year-old and a 10-month-old. And 10-month-old and the 2-year-old don't know what's going on. But the 4-year-old and 6-year-old are very, like, especially with Lent and Easter and all those things coming up or just having happened, and Paschal services and all of that. They're very aware through our everyday morning liturgy at school of what's happening in the life of Christ, of what's happening in the life of the church. And they're ready for the work of Sunday morning. And so that was a primary goal for us. As we got started in Houston, we started to look at the needs. Houston is a very underserved community when it comes to schools. Our public schools here are pretty wretched, and so we knew that there was this need. But we worked our way backwards. So starting as a bunch of university professors, we started researching as to what are the very best practices that we can bring into K-12 education, because we know the goal. We're very comfortable with what a great college student looks like. We're very comfortable with what a great high school graduate looks like. We've been working with those for years. And so how do we bring them there? How do we get them there? And we didn't have any superintendent or anyone really telling us, well, it has to be like this, or you have to do things like this. So we really got to dive into, well, what's the best way to do it? And to look to developmental psychology and to look to the wisdom of the church and tell us, like, what does it tell us about our children? And how do we form an education that is best for them? And so our mission in our K-12 school was to build a school that helped meet children where they were at, that respected them as whole persons made in the image of God. A child is not just an inadequate adult, right? They are made as they are and loved deeply by Christ exactly as they are in their little 5-year-old body. They don't need to be bigger or better to be worthy of God's love, and they deserve to be treated like that. And so we I was classically educated myself. In our university programs, the classical model had been excellent, and we loved it for our older students. But noticed that it broke down a little bit in the really early years. For one, in the ancient and medieval worlds, nobody was going to school at age 4, right? So we really don't have a precedent for how to do early childhood well in classical education. And so we joined the classical model with other methodologies that we felt met those developmental needs of our youngest students well, such as Waldorf and Montessori. We looked to forest schools and to play philosophy to tell us how we were best to shape a childlike day. We looked at the homeschooling movement. I was homeschooled myself, and there's a lot that the homeschoolers have shown us about what is good for children, what's possible in a child's education, right? We get used to thinking in these terms of 8-hour days and being at our desks, and homeschooling has really shown that that's not needed in order for a rich education to take place. In fact, it might be sort of in the way of a rich education taking place. And so we made a couple of really early decisions that have shaped who we are, and they don't seem like big decisions, but there's 2 that I wanted to highlight because they really have shaped the culture of Saint Constantine. One is a block schedule. So we decided early on that trying to cram 7 or 8 subjects into a single day was stressful at best and detrimental to everybody's learning experience at worst. And at the same time, we still wanted to value art and music. We wanted to give our students time to be physically healthy and have physical education. We wanted to give them time outside. And so the way we did that was to structure the entire school on a block schedule where Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we are we have our core academic subjects of English and math, history, science, and foreign language. And on Tuesday, Thursday, we spend our time in music and art. Our little kids, so 5th grade and under, are in gardening class. Everybody's in PE. And then our older students get study time, study skills courses, writing seminars, and electives. This is allowed for a 5-period day, which means that our classes are longer and our breaks are significant. So our students Everybody junior high on down spends about an hour or more. Our littlest students spend about half their day outside, but everybody spends at least an hour outside every day, which is what the Academy of American Pediatricians recommends. They also estimate the average student gets 7 minutes a day. So we're trying to change that. So our students spend about an hour outside every single day, not including classes that take place outside. That's just free play. And this brings me to the second thing. We decided that when they were outside, ready to play, they really got to play. And so free play and allowing for the freedom of childhood to take place in front of us is a huge, huge component of Saint Constantine. And this has been transformative for our student body and for our families. Our students get really, really dirty. There was a huge storm last night, so everything is very wet right now. My children were so muddy, like so muddy coming home. I'm sure that was everybody's experience today. They get bumps and bruises. They fill their shoes with sand. They stain their uniforms. They tear their uniforms. They paint on their uniforms. It's a mess. They get mud on the outside of the walls. They play. They really play. They climb trees. They wrestle. They race. They play Red Rover, which is banned in many schools. I don't know why. Neck hitting or something. And our teachers are trained in this play philosophy to encourage our students to play well, to conflict manage with one another, and to do the work of childhood, which is to learn how to be with one another and how to fight your own battles, but be kind and thoughtful, to be creative and winsome and fun. These elements have come together at Saint Constantine with a group of very passionate educators. We now have 120 staff members here in Houston and just under 500 students. We'll surpass that number next year in just 7 years. And our president, as I mentioned, never does anything small. And so at the very outset of the school, what he said was that this would be the first school, but we would soon have a school in every major airport city, because he wanted to see the revival of Orthodox education. He wanted to see a rich classical Christian education paired with an understanding of development for children and paired with free play and a loving and rich Christological environment. He wanted to see morning prayers led by Orthodox priests. Now he gets very grand sometimes. He's like, every city in America, and I'm like, well, that might take a while, but maybe we'll get there in the end. And so our mission has always been to spread what we do to the communities that want it. As I said, we are passionate and professional educators. There are a lot of people who want this. There are a lot of people who want to start schools. And many Christian schools get started by the hard work of really dedicated parents, much like this launch committee coming together and devoting the work because they want what they want to build this for their children. And that is an amazing way to get started. But if it's just left there, oftentimes it can lead to a few families leading the charge and working themselves to the bone until their children graduate. And that's great. Their children are going to have an incredible experience. But a lot of Christian schools last about 15 years before they close again. And a lot of the money and the effort and all of that kind of fades away with it. And so what we're trying to do is work in a collaborative community of schools so that we can set something that we can establish and it will endure. We want something that will last for many generations of students so that we can give this Orthodox education to generations to come. So that is our goal. That's how we have been built from the very beginning. And one of the ways we hope to achieve that is through our national office model. And so Emily Kay is going to go through some of the details of that. But to give you a little bit of the rundown of it, we have built a team of some of our initial leadership, like myself and Annie and Emily Kay and Emily B, John and Megan Muller, and Dr. Reynolds. we are all have kind of adjusted our jobs in order to be the leadership of multiple schools in a national office. And what this will allow for is there is a lot of work that goes into running a school that is almost invisible to most students. The things that students and families see and need in their local community are truly excellent teachers and a great and welcoming administration on the ground. They don't need to know where the marketing materials are coming from or who's running the budget or who's doing the fundraising unless they're being asked directly. But all of those things can be run from a centralized office and save local schools a great deal of money. HR is a great example of this, right? When we unite a network of schools into a common employer, we save ourselves money on things like health insurance, but we also save ourselves money on not having to have employees running that at every single site. And so this is where Dr. Reynolds would tell you online education will work. They just got it backwards. They tried to put the teachers and students online, which is the only thing you should never put online. They should put the administration online and let the teachers and the students enjoy each other in person. And so that's our model. We think that we can bring a strong, passionate and well-trained leadership team in curriculum and hiring, in policy and handbooks and HR, and then most importantly for many places on the business side, because how you run your finances, the ethics of that are very important. We also have a strong national board, the kind of board members who would be very difficult to get for individual schools, but who stand behind a national network of school and who provide the business acumen and leadership that we all need. So this is our calling and our vocation, and we're just very excited to start to spread this to other cities. So our school in Pittsburgh will launch this fall. We were just in Pittsburgh last week, introducing them to their new headmaster. Not this fall, sorry, in 2024. I am already in this school year is over to me. I'm already ahead. So they'll start in 2024, and then we're excited and hopeful to see Denver shortly behind. So Emily Kay, it's all you.
I think you're still muted, Emily.
Thank you. Great. For those who join later, my name is Emily Kasradze. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the Saint Constantine School. And schools now, Kate was just telling you about the educational philosophy that we've developed that we get to be part of by being part of the network. And now I'm going to talk about the business side, the business philosophy. It's also sort of part of the package. Just a word about myself and where I got my exotic last name from. Shortly after college, I became Orthodox and I joined IOCC, International Orthodox Christian Charities, and they sent me to Georgia, and I met my husband there. So after that, after working for a few years with IOCC, I got an MBA, and then went to British Petroleum, BP, starting off in Alaska, working internationally, Azerbaijan, Singapore, and I ended up in Houston. And at one point, the oil prices were getting lower, and I had an opportunity to think about what I really wanted to do. I come from a family of teachers, and I'd always thought about education, and I had suddenly had the opportunity to combine the business. I had been managing finance teams at BP, but to combine business with education, which is and teach. I got certified middle and high school math, and I had finally at Saint Constantine, I had a job where I could teach a class because all the administrators also teach a math class and do business, which I love. So I was actually the first paid finance employee at the Saint Constantine School. Before that, we'd had a few volunteers. And it was really fun to think about the control systems and how to do things right that I'd seen at a big company and try to apply that, but make it really simple for a small school starting out. So getting to invent the systems that would work well for us. And that was fun for me, but that might not be fun for you. That might not be fun for everybody who wants to start a school. And so what we want to do is help, as Kate said, help you all focus on the students, the families, the teachers where you are. So the folks on the ground are focused outwards towards your community, and then help us be the online back office to take care of things on the business side, the accounting, contracts, audits, regulatory, insurance, strategic planning. All of these things we can help with, so the folks on the ground can focus more on the education. So just a few comments on how we run things from the business office. So the overall philosophy is to be in our finances accurate, in control, as simply as possible. So we are, as the network expands, we mentioned opening Pittsburgh next, and then others, as others come on, Denver Metro, et cetera. We will continue to be centralized in Houston for finance. So we have a system now, it's all electronic. We have Blackbaud is sort of the gold standard in educational enterprise software. It has accounting, fundraising, educational management aspects, and it's set up for consolidating and a network. So I think a lot of the benefit of being part of the network of the Saint Constantine School is, part of it is economies of scale. So we already have big school software. Every school, when we started, we had QuickBooks. Everyone who starts gets QuickBooks. Every donut shop has QuickBooks, but it can only do so much. And so, we've already invested a lot of time into choosing software, purchasing enterprise software, and it's easy marginally to add on, another location. It's pretty easy once you've got that set up. We've already got processes in place that have been tested by audit. We've just passed our third clean audit. All that's been tested. In terms of being a large group, when you're trying to get health insurance, when you're trying to get property insurance, it's easier to be part of a large group rather than, a smaller employer. So there's economies of scale, but there's also economies of not being first, of not having to develop all this yourself. And so I think, a lot of the benefit actually is what you don't have to do. In Denver Metro, as you start up a school, you don't have to hire accountants or auditors. You don't have to invent your own control systems. You don't have to choose software or invest in big enterprise software because we've already got it. You don't have to worry about regulatory filings, because we'll take care of those things. And then with every strategic decision, I know with our school, every year we have a strategic decision because we're growing, thank God, every year. And where are we going to put these kids? And so thinking about the growth and the future planning is something that we can help you with. So overall, I think, I hope you'll see that there's a big benefit both on the educational side, but also on the business side to being part of the Saint Constantine School. And we really look forward to working with you more and getting to know the Denver metro area. With that, I'll hand it on to Annie to talk about fundraising.
All right. Well, I am, let's see, it says I'm highlighted. Okay. Thank you, Emily B. Thank you, Kate. You always inspire me. Emily, you always inspire me. So my name is Annie Hickman, and I do serve as the Vice President of Development. And, much like many families at our school, are this group of remnant folks that were looking for an alternative. And my first introduction to the school was as a father. We had unfortunately searched and searched for an educational model that was teaching to the whole person of my children. We prioritized family, and sometimes school took so much time away from the family. And so coming from the parochial schools, we saw a lot of unfortunate things about where education had gone, to the rigidity, teaching to the test. I had stressed out third graders, and no third grader should be stressed out. You're a kid, enjoy being a kid. And so after some years homeschooling, we were introduced, actually year one with the Saint Constantine School, and the roadblock was really time in a school. We wanted to be involved. And so the block schedule actually worked really well for our family. And we started, with one kid, at the Great Books, class. And okay, go try that out. And then pretty soon it was, Dad, I want to stay there all day long. And then it was our next child and next child. And we have 9 total. We are of the Roman communion, 9 children, and 8 of them are now in our school. Like we said, there is there's a grade for everybody, and more than likely a Hickman is in one of those grades. My background was always in ministry, church ministry, nonprofit leadership. I've started, founded nonprofits for a little over 2 decades. And so I'll just give you a little bit of background as far as working with young people. To Kate's point, it is very true that we can do so much in ministry, but boy, those schools is really where the spiritual formation happens. And so I was witnessing a lot of that in the work we were doing. And so when, this beautiful, innovative, just a fresh look at education came up from my own family, I saw an opportunity to share this as well. And so was happy to join the team a few years later after the founding. And being that I had a background in nonprofits, I had a little bit of an idea of, first and foremost, why people saw fundraising as, kind of the icky thing to do. Oh, am I going to have to ask people for money? I saw my own conversion through that, watching God connect people with resources to a mission. Much like, Father David said, this is a ministry, and our primary philosophy in fundraising and in development is that it is not just a ministry for those who are receiving the education, but it's a ministry for all people involved, including those with means. What do I mean by fundraising as ministry? Well, I believe that when we ask someone, when we invite someone, when we share vision with someone, our principle is simply this: we are inviting you into a work that God is doing. We're not saying, I oftentimes say, if you're asking people for money, like, oh, we have this problem, will you please help us? That's very different. We would like to say, God is up to a great work, and you should be thanking us for giving you an opportunity to join in God's mission, right? We ask standing up, we ask confident and trusting in the Lord, who, when he asks something of us, that he will pay the bill, that he will be faithful to us. And so oftentimes we get weird about fundraising because perhaps our relationship with money is weird. It's one of those unspeakable things. At Thanksgiving, you don't talk about salaries, you don't talk about how much your car costs or anything like that. And so, so we ask ourselves, what's our relationship with money first and foremost? Because if it is a reliance on the providence of God, once you've released that pressure, you can ask more freely, and especially when you see God doing a great work. And so the second principle that we like to use, just briefly, and I'm going to give sort of an overview here, and then we can get very practical with questions. But the second principle, the value that we use in our development office, is that it is all relationship built. Unfortunately, fundraising, face-to-face relationship, much like teachers, cannot be done solely online. It can't be virtual. You're not going to Zoom in a donor for me to make an ask. There will need to be a board of directors primarily, and folks on the ground, head of school, and perhaps a salaried person, a part-time person, to begin this relationship building. Because again, we're communing as a church, established on a soul relationship with Christ, and he brings us together. And so everything that we do, whether that's in the classroom, in our staff training, or if it's in our solicitation and our donor relationships, it's all based on communion. And the fruit of that is real community. It's the donor experience should be good for everybody. It should lead to the salvation of our donors. If we're not doing that, we are not a Christian school, right? And so we have to make sure that this is a call of God, and then the person asking, it's also good for them. if you're worn out and you don't know, and that relationship and it's not good for you and it terrifies you, please, please, please don't do it if it's leading you away from the kingdom. But we have witnessed, especially over the last 7 years at Constantine, true miracles when people are put into this vision that we truly can, in an educational model, form and educate saints for the kingdom of God. And so that's the second part, is that community, that relationships are everything. And the last part is just joy. It's fun and enjoyable to watch God form children, form families, and build the kingdom. Loaves and fishes. It's his providence that has brought us this far, and it's his providence that's going to keep driving us forward, propelling us into bigger and broader scopes of mission. So those are sort of our principles based on our experience and a few great texts. And I hope to we can follow up, and some of you already have these texts and we've already talked about them, but hopefully we can get into the nitty gritty as questions come and as we progress in our relationship. The last thing that I want to talk about is the specific fundraising. We like to split our fundraising efforts, campaigns, and appeals into 3 major categories, or 3 buckets, as I like to say. The first being operational, that bridging of gap from tuition dollars to what it actually costs to keep the lights on and salaries paid, et cetera. The second bucket is scholarships, which is a truly inspirational piece of fundraising when you get to witness children who would never have the opportunity to go to a school like this. You watch them thrive in a school program based on the donations that come in for their scholarships. And then the last one is this capital bucket that would go towards not only the purchase of property, but the upkeep and management, and then small cap projects that you need to do throughout the year. Year 0, we are currently, I guess, in a silent phase of fundraising, as you would say, in the Denver Metro. We've identified and begun to qualify different donors at various levels of capacity, and we seek to raise in this year 0 $200,000 to $250,000 for the hiring, the forming of the entities, and the initial recruitment and marketing to launch in year 1, which would be the following fall, where we, from the point we raise enough money to actually hire and get the business started. So I'd love to take any questions, practical, at the end, if there's any one in the chat, or also answer some of the questions that already came in on the survey. So that's all I got.
Thanks so much, Annie. So we're going to move into some Q&A time. I'm going to re-spotlight Kate and Emily. Obviously, Liz and Shannon, feel free to hop into if we're missing anything. But the first question that we have is, why Denver Metro? Why is this, a place that we want to bring a Saint Constantine School? I don't know, Kate, do you want to start that off? And then Liz and Shannon too, if y'all have things to add to that.
So as I said before, our president says every airport city, and Denver certainly has an airport. I think what he means by that is something like cities that are hubs, cities that are growing, cities that a lot of people are moving to, or are revitalizing. In the case of Pittsburgh, it's a place that's kind of being rebuilt after a big slump. So we look for cities where there are families, obviously, and places that are, for us, easy to get to is one of the reasons for the airport, so that we can work collaboratively with one another. But more importantly than any of that, there's lots of cities that fit that definition. Is the way we've chosen to start is to really connect with interested members of the community. So we have had dozens of different communities in different locations reach out to us and talk about forming a launch committee to start a Saint Constantine school in their area. And some of these have gotten farther. I want to commend Liz and Shannon, especially to all of you guys, as some of the most dedicated and hardworking people that we have had the privilege to work with in this. They are so passionate about this project. And we need that kind of community buy-in because we're not in Denver and we don't know your community like you know. And so the thing that has really gotten Pittsburgh off the ground is that they have a group of people who almost all of them are the most involvement they'll have at the schools if they're going to be parents. You know, that's their primary motivation. Parents, excited community members, clergy, people who just really want this for their community, and they have volunteered their time and resources to getting this off the ground so that we could bring a head of school and get started officially there this year. And so you all have that in Shannon and Liz. You have leaders who have been, and many others. You know, there's a lot of people on your launch committee that have worked hard to vet us and see if this is a good partnership for you all. And we think it is, and they think it is, I think, still. And so that's why Denver for us.
Anyone else have anything to add there? I think that was great. I know we talked a lot about this within kind of like how it works between, you know, central office and branch campus, but maybe we can talk specifically more on teachers. I know there's a question in the chat. We'll get to that more specifically, but what support and oversight will the Denver Metro branch campus receive from the central office? And I think highlighting the teacher training and hiring. How do we do that?
Teachers are the number one most important element of a school. You can have bad curriculum and a great teacher will fix it. They shouldn't have to, but they will. You can have bad administration, and if the teachers in the classroom are loving and serving those kids well, those kids are going to have a good education. And so teachers are our number one priority. Emily Kay mentioned that all of our administration teaches. That's not a platitude. That is very real. Like we were all in the classroom this week. We're in the classroom, some of us daily, some of us every other day, but no less than that. Annie teaches PE, Emily's teaching writing, Emily Kay's teaching math, I teach great books. And it's because we know how important it is for the administration to stay very, very tied to the classroom experience. And the best way to do that is just to be in the classroom. And so one of the things that makes St. Constantine unique is our teaching faculty. We hire the best of the best. It is a tragic thing about our schools right now, though a great advantage to us, that universities and colleges are closing. They're struggling financially. And so there are a lot of professors and college professors who are being laid off. Public schools are a hard place to work. Even good public schools are a hard place to work, where we ask an unreasonable amount of our teachers. So these forces have made it so that there are a lot of very passionate and great educators who are looking for a better job. And we have been able to be a place that can provide that better job for them. And because of who our president is, Dr. Reynolds has a wide network throughout the university world. Because of the reputation that we have built as a school, we are contacted literally daily by excellent, passionate teachers who want a better job and who want to be a place maybe. So Korea Gigi Shadid fits this role. She has had a 10-year career. She was our Fort Bend County Teacher of the Year. It's a huge county with great schools, and she was awarded the greatest teacher in that district. But she was tired of being in a place where she couldn't share her faith, where she couldn't live that out, where she felt increasingly like she might just get replaced with a computer. So she was ready to frankly take a pay cut and come work for us. And she's been with us for 4 years now, 5 years, I don't know, something like that. And she's just wonderful. blessing our first graders and sixth graders every single day. And we hear from people like that all the time. So John Mueller is our Vice President for Faculty Affairs, and his job is to collect the resumes of the people who want to work for Saint Constantine Schools, to vet them and interview them, and then work with local head of schools to place them in the right roles for them. And so the central office will play a pretty significant role in finding and vetting your staff. And then John and I in particular spend a lot of our time developing training and curriculum training, culture training, pedagogy training, so that we're continually equipping our teachers well.
So to kind of further that, there's a question in the chat regarding someone that's interested in teaching a variety of subjects, including Latin, which is great because we do need Latin teachers. Is it even possible for someone with no formal training in education? And what should I do to get started if I want to work there?
I think as of right now, I think we have, I'm probably wrong about 5, maybe 5. So I said we have 100 staff members. I think we have 5 with teaching certificates. That's what I can think of off the top of my head. All of our teachers have at least bachelor's degrees. About 60% of our teachers have graduate degrees as well. But we look for experience in a lot of different places. Some of our greatest teachers came to us out of Sunday school or out of homeschooling. They were working with kids all the time. Like they knew how to run a classroom because they were doing it every single week at church. And of course, there's going to be a learning curve, but what we look for is a passion for children, a love for children, a love for your subject area, something that you can bring to that classroom to show people how much you care, to enliven the interests of these young minds who are being introduced to this by you. And those skill sets can come from many, many places. Homeschool moms have been a great resource for us. Like that's a place that we've gotten great teachers because they've been living it out with their lives for years and years.
Thanks, Kate. If I can add to that too, my background, I never ever thought I'd ever want to be a teacher or work at a school. My background's in nonprofit operations and ministry. And when I started working for St. Constantine, I was part-time first, had the opportunity to start teaching, and then and I fell in love with it. I had no idea what a ministry it was to be in a classroom. I teach 6th grade writing and grammar, and I, along with my students, am falling in love with grammar. Well, I'm probably falling in love more than they are, but I think it's so important. We have is it Mrs. Nakshu or is it Dr. Augustus who says, I am going to make, is it math? Their favorite subject, or science, chemistry or something.
Science,
high school science, yeah. Dr. Augustus says, yeah, I will make, it's my goal to make science their favorite subject. And she succeeds pretty well. So there's a certain joy that all of our faculty bring from my personal experience. But so the next question is, so Kate, you talked a lot about how large the school in Houston is and that we're growing and about to exceed 500. Those are some big numbers. What would be the expectation, or would the local school in Denver Metro have to replicate the Houston campus in size, scope, expense? What does that look like?
It doesn't need to. As I said, Houston is severely underschooled. Very oddly, we are actually the only 5-day-a-week classical school in Houston proper, which is very weird. Dallas has, I don't know, a dozen classical schools. So we had particular advantages here, but there are also advantages to being K-12, or even beyond that. Now, you don't have to start out that way. You don't even have to end that way if you have excellent high schools, something like that. So the model is scalable to wherever people are at. We started with 100 students because that's who walked in our doors. We had some combined grade levels. And that was 100 pre-K all the way up through 12th grade, actually freshman year of college, but there was only 2 of those. We've talked about everything from a pre-K through 5th grade. That's a very easy thing to start. Just grade school, and you can work up from there, or you can launch a junior high at a later point. It really just depends on the needs and demands of the community, which we would assess carefully before we decided.
And just kind of hopping back to the there's one more question from Deacon John, is if someone did want to teach, would there be any recommendations of how to get started and I guess being hireable? Or I think the first thing would be to reach out to, is it careers at stconstantine.org, just to put your name out there and introduce yourself to John Muller. But any sort of reading or trainings you'd recommend for someone that would be interested in working at St. Constantine?
I can recommend a lot of reading, but it depends on what you feel like you're familiar with and what you feel like you're not in our models. So a text is a little hard to get a hold of, but Norms and Nobility is a really good sort of primer. It's by David Hicks. It's a good background in what we mean by classical education, what we mean by the kind of education that is values-based rather than just a system that we're trying to get people moved through and a product at the end of it. Anything by Charlotte Mason can be helpful in understanding especially how we view our education of our younger students. And then just want to dive into our great books list. If you're interested in sort of seeing what an experience of being, read a good book and discuss it is sort of the core principle of a great large chunk, whether you're in astronomy class or great books class, like read good content and figure it out together is pretty much what we do. As far as teaching pedagogy specifically goes, okay, so I should plug the conference. This
I was
is
just going to
something.
suggest that.
Yeah,
It
I
hadn't
hadn't occurred to me when I started talking. Yeah, I'll let Emily give you the details, but we've had a lot of people ask, like, how do we get started or how do we get involved with something like this? We would have people ask to visit the school on all the time. And so we started a conference. We'll have our second annual conference this summer, I think it's the last weekend of July, where we get together very intentionally as educators to talk about education and to talk about being equipped to educate well. So this year's theme is bearing fruit. And I mean, Emily B., you probably have a lot more to say about that.
Yeah, so it's July 27th through 29th. We also have a pre-conference day on that day before, where you can come actually visit the school, but the conference is in downtown Houston. Dr. Reynolds, Dr. Anika Prather, Karen Swallow Pryor, John Muller, Paul Barnes, if you're familiar with him, he's a incredible pianist and chanter. Yeah, we'll be here. And then we have workshops by our faculty and various others from the community. So if you go to our website, stconstantine.org/vision conference, there's way more eloquently written information on there. But we'd be happy to have y'all join. And I believe that there's a group in Denver that is also hoping to even come visit the school in the fall at some point. We can figure out those details. But yeah. The next question is, I was going to add too, if you're curious about like culture, reading our blog on our website, we have teachers who every week or multiple times a week write a blog, and they get to choose the topic. I think Dr. Reynolds' son Ian just recently wrote about why you should buy your kid a sword or something like that, and breaks down sword fighting, and so there's a lot of really, really great stuff in there. If you like a good cry, definitely read the blog on our website. So okay, so a question that was asked in the chat is actually similar to the next question. What is the next big milestone for Denver Metro? What's the next step? What are we working on right now to make this a reality? I don't know if you want to take a stab at that, Kate, too, as well. Kate knows everything. So.
Yeah, as far as tangible next steps to move forward, this would be, so we've already, if you've been following along, we already have, a letter of intent, memorandum of understanding with the launch committee. The next tangible step will be to raise the necessary funds to start year one. Now, the big questions that are out there as far as location, size, these types of things will be taken, these questions will come up during this period of time. But a lot of that, similar to the way that we have done it in Pittsburgh, is it's really the personnel and the board structure, those on the launch committee and those network, the larger network of people coming and learning how they can help support the school as well. So tangible next steps is, in my department, make your lists of potential supporters. Make your lists based on your wedding invitations. Make your list based on those who are passionate about handing on the faith. And not just those that have means to support financially, but those who are in different industries and fields. We're always in need of legal services and always in need of, extra hands, in all sorts of departments. So I would say begin to spread your nets wide to the larger network in your churches and in your current communities.
Yeah, and also, Liz and Shannon, do y'all want to speak a little bit about the launch committee too, kind of what the work on the ground has been, what your needs are? I will say, so Pittsburgh right now, their launch committee was about 23 or 24 people, all working on various parts such as outreach and fundraising. So yeah, do y'all feel like y'all have a need for some more committee members? Oh, I think you're muted still, Shannon.
Sorry. Sorry. Yes, we definitely welcome anyone that is interested in joining our committee to reach out and let us know if that's something you're interested in doing. So our committee is currently operating under 3 subcommittees. So we have location, outreach, and fundraising. We currently have 11 people on our committee. But again, we are looking to expand, especially getting into all the different parishes and having some kind of representation from our committee at each parish. So if that is something anyone is interested in, please reach out to us. Our email address is several different places online. You could definitely find us, or you could send us a message in the chat if you want us to follow up with you.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, the email is denvermetro@stconstantine.org. Following up on the fundraise. Oh, thanks, Liz, for putting that in the chat. Following up on the fundraising, can you clarify who is responsible for fundraising?
So sorry for this not being clear. We all are responsible. I will handle a lot of the back office, as far as receiving donations, acknowledging, receipting. Our office, again, as Emily has said, we've had, these tried and true processes, in working with finance. Emily and I are on the same page, making sure we're keeping accurate records and reporting back to the launch committee or the fundraising committee on the launch committee about where they are and how they're progressing. The on the ground, day-to-day initiatives and appeals, yes, will be the responsibility of those in Denver. However, I am also the resource. We can meet regularly. We already have met regularly about some of the strategies that we will implement. But I am here as a resource. We are here as a resource to help you along every step of the way. And again, in Pittsburgh, we were successful at doing that, excited to get started in a more tangible way with you there in Pittsburgh as well. Again, this goes back to the idea of relationships. I could send an email, but they don't know me; they know you, and so it's a matter of giving you the right tools and the articulation of the vision so that you can go share that vision with those who'd want to support financially.
Thanks. Did you have something to add, Emily?
Yes, I'd like to say, just from the business point of view, so our school's already has charitable registration in Colorado. So donations, thank you for everyone who's been donating. And so currently, we have a assumed name, like a DBA, for the Saint Constantine School, Denver Metro. But once we're ready, as Annie mentioned, once we've raised that critical mass of funds to allow us to hire a head of school locally who will start that planning year, finding teachers, finding students, finding the location, with the help of the committee and then the new board, we will start a new legal entity, just, of course, for Denver Metro, that will be the employer of people on the ground. It'll have insurance, but it'll be part of the Saint Constantine School network. It'll be rolled up for audit. It will have our accounting processes. But so there's some legal work, but it'll be easier because we'll have done it before. We'll have done it in Pittsburgh, so we'll adapt it for Colorado as well.
Thanks. So in a similar vein, what will a financially healthy school look like? Eventual tuition, fundraising ratio. Yeah, does anyone want to take that?
I know from my perspective, perhaps Emily, you can add to this, but I know that for the seeding of any ministry, the seeding of any project, the investment in, you want to open a restaurant, there's going to be a larger portion of the income and the revenue coming from financial gifts. So I know that as our model progresses, it becomes more sustainable as more students enter and as revenue from tuition begins to get higher and higher. So that's not a raising of tuition. It's essentially a balancing of how much financial aid we offer and scholarships, et cetera. But the sustainable model, I think that, if you look at it over the course of 10 years, as student enrollment increases, donations begin to be a smaller portion of the percentage as far as revenue stream goes. So sustainability looks like about 60-40 in the end, where tuition, that's where I would like to be, in the coming years. So 60 in tuition and 40 from donations.
Emily, did you have anything to add to that? Okay.
I think he said it well.
And I think too, if you want to talk more to financial aid and why financial aid, why scholarship, how does even tuition costs, is there a certain anticipated tuition cost? How do we choose that in Houston? Anything like that? What is our tuition compared to other private schools as well in Houston? Kate.
I'm like, I know what it is. I don't know how we came up with that number. And, in this last, Molly is asking, what is the anticipated tuition cost? I doubt we can give a number now, but.
Tuition is one of those things that's extremely dependent on your location. What your particular market is expecting and will bear is going to be very different. Like Denver to Pittsburgh, for instance, is going to be very different. Houston is an odd place and falls probably somewhere in between. So we have some very expensive, very, very expensive private schools here in Houston. What we decided, I had mentioned to you all that when John Mark was the vice president of a university, the academic side controlled just a third of the budget. And so we knew that when we were building St. Constantine, we had to do things differently. And so we devote, Emily would know exactly what it is, but what is something like 70% of our budget is payroll. And as I said, every single person teaches. Anything else significant to that is facilities. So just the place the student is in and the person that they're hanging out with, that's what costs us everything. And so we committed to ourselves very early on that we would never charge an amount that wasn't linked to how much it actually costs us to educate a child. We're actually a little under that right now because we've made some investments. Like we expanded our campus by buying a neighboring facility and things like that. So we're actually under what it costs us to educate right now. But that's our model, is to keep the streamlining of the central office, the requirement that every single person teaches. We hope that this produces a school where the tuition is able to be leaner than it is in many other places. And we commit to making sure that the cost of tuition is directly linked to the cost to educate a child. And so we are one of the lowest priced full-time private schools in Houston. The last actually official grouping I saw, we were the lowest priced private school in Houston.
I want to see if I could add to that. Partly that's the part of the philosophy. We're not the fanciest in the sense of a lot of schools spend a lot of money in technology. We may not have smart boards in every classroom because we've got books on paper. We've got trees to climb. We've got dirt to play in. So I think our model is a little bit different too. It's really focused on the teacher, the book, the students, and the discussion, which helps us, I think, not have to have the huge prices that are almost like undergraduate tuition at some private schools now, because of where our values are as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. We got 2 more questions. Do we have the great books list online somewhere, or is that something we need to share privately? I don't know, Kate,
We have a partial list. So if you go to our website, you'll see kind of like greatest hits in several areas of the school. So what do we read in lower school? What do we read in junior high? What do we read in high school? Our curriculum is, it's a pretty core piece to what we do. So we don't publish the details of what we read widely. It is something that your school would get when it comes into existence. It's also something we adjust and fight over every single year. So like I said, we have passionate educators. So the great books list shifts just slightly every single year.
one of my favorite things I've ever been to is in a college great books throwdown. That's what it's called. I've never seen so much arguing over books and readings. I love this question. Can you talk about the model that you have for part-time or a la carte classes for homeschoolers?
Sure. This came from 2 places that I felt like private schools were kind of weird about, given homeschooling and university education already working in this way. So if you want to go to a university, you can go and take a full slate of classes. They will be very happy, for you to be a full-time student. But if you can only take 1 class, they are also fine with that. And so I wondered why private schools didn't work the same way. It didn't seem immediately clear to me why they couldn't. And based on our block schedule, especially, it felt like that could be possible where there was room and availability. We also knew that as a new private school, it can be very hard to compete in the private school market when you're new. Established private schools have things that no new school is going to have. They have a reputation, they have facility, they have all of these things that it takes a lot to get someone to leave their well-established private school and try something for a startup. But homeschoolers are wild. They'll try anything once, and they're open to new opportunities. Like I said, I was homeschooled my whole life, and so I knew this personally. And so we thought if we can open ourselves up to the homeschool market, if we can get some buy-in from people who are willing to check us out and try us out, And then the other great thing about homeschool moms is they share. So if they love something, their whole church is going to hear about it. And so that really was a huge key to our success. Is in the beginning, half of our kids were part-time. They took a class or two. They would get, if you were under the junior high, then the one rule was that if you were here part-time, you had to be picked up as soon as your class was done, because we didn't have like childcare available for you. But we had high schoolers who would just come for calculus because that's a hard class to get, or just come for great books because it was very unique. Now it's a very small percentage of our students that are officially part-time, because they would come for a class and they would become full-time students, like the Hickmans, pretty quickly. So we do offer that. We still have a couple kids who, like 2 of our seniors graduating this year, just have taken great books the whole time. That's really all they've done. I think one of them took a math class or 2, but they'll be in the graduation ceremony. We're happy to have them as a part of the community. But most of our students now are more traditional.
Are there any more questions? Leah, can you speak more specifically about the block schedule and how that works well for commuters?
Yeah, so Houston is enormous. Houston is an hour away from Houston. And so in order to appeal to a wider range of the city, we thought, well, maybe people would drive 3 days a week, but they won't drive, even if they can't drive 5 days a week. So that did help us grow. But the block schedule, as I mentioned before, the main reason for it is pedagogical. It allows us to have a week that we like the pace of better. It allows us to study a wide range of topics in an unhurried way. It allows us to give our children the play and rest that they need. It allows our classes to be longer so that our older students can spend more time in meaningful discussion, spend more time doing work with the teachers in the classroom so that they have less homework to do at home. So those are our main things. But the block schedule has served us in many different areas, like allowing commuters to come 3 days a week, allowing homeschool families who don't actually, they're comfortable doing the core academic stuff on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They're really comfortable doing that at home, but they would love for their kid to be in a choir or to have PE or just to have a community of kids. And so we have some kids who just come on Tuesday, Thursday for what would generally be considered enrichment classes, because that provides them with a community and provides them with trained art and music teachers that they don't have access to at home. So the block schedule allows us to serve a variety of families' needs, but the main reason we do it is it's just a better way to educate.
Thanks, Kate. Any other questions before we wrap up, Liz and Shannon? Anything else we want to touch on? Awesome. So go ahead, take it away, Shannon.
I'm going to actually hand it off to Liz to do some closing remarks, and then we'll have Father Demetrius a closing prayer for us.
All right, I get the hot potato. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz, and like Shannon, I've been a member of the committee since it was first just a group of parents and educators and business leaders and clergy who really started talking a lot more about education and the kind of education that we want for our children. And so I get the very easy and fun job tonight of doing all the thank yous. I want to thank you all for coming. I really want to thank the staff for being with us here tonight. It is getting late in Houston, and it really just shows it's a testament to their commitment to this vision of supporting groups throughout the country to bring this type of education to children everywhere. And I also want to share with everyone that when we first, as a committee, started exploring the possibility of a partnership, it was exactly conversations like this that really showed to us the unique value and the talented team, the joy, the faithfulness of this group of people, and what this model of education could really bring to our community. and what we really believed would be the best way to make our prayer of an Orthodox classical education a reality. So thank you to the staff for giving our greater community the chance to see that for themselves too. I also want to thank the clergy who are here tonight. I know we have a few. And one thing we learned in studying schools throughout the country is that this work cannot fall on the shoulders of our clergy, and it also cannot happen without their prayers and support. So we're very, very grateful for the engagement and the mentorship and the guidance that we receive from our clergy. And last, I want to thank everyone who took the time to be here. And I actually have a little homework for you. So 3 things. First, please, if you're not already, join us and follow us online. So the best way to do that is either through our mailing list and or through our social media. Our web address is stconstantine.org/Denver Metro. I always mix those 2 up. And there's a link on there to join our mailing list. You can also find us on Facebook. We're at /TSCS Denver Metro. And that's a great place to just get more frequent updates and also meet other people in our community. So please stay in touch with us. The second thing is, after this webinar, we're going to send out a link to a survey. And actually on your screen right now, there is a QR code that you can scan with a smartphone. Just to provide some feedback for us. That also will lead you into an option to join on our mailing list there too, if that works for you. And I will drop a link in the comments at the end. But don't leave the chat till we're done. Just go ahead after the webinar and take a few moments and share your thoughts with us and help us know what you'd like to hear more about. And that goes too for anybody who's watching this as a recording. We welcome your feedback on the survey and your comments. And then last, if you liked this content, we are going to be posting it onto our YouTube page, and we would absolutely love if you share it with your networks, help us spread the word and help start those conversations, because as our whole team tonight spoke about, this really is a calling and it really is a work of the people. And it takes a whole team of dedicated people to make this a reality. So please help engage with us and share it with people you think should know. And with that, I get to pass it off to, I believe Father Demetrios is here to offer some closing remarks and a closing prayer.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. This is a wonderful opportunity to bring education to Colorado. And I think there's, as we can see from all the different schools coming around, the field is ripe for this type of project. And the committee's done the research to kind of find the best model that would fit in Denver. So I just ask everybody to look at this and see. Sorry about that. I had a notification, and see how you can support it. And the thing about education is it's not always. You always want it when you have kids, and you don't think about it the other times. But oftentimes, schools are funded not just through the kids, but through their parents, but through the grandparents and through the community at large to support the education. It's important because while we like to think about it when we have kids, it's these other people's kids that will end up being our doctors in our old age, and our nurses, and our pilots, and our politicians. So we should invest in their future as much as we can, and one with critical thinking skills. With that, I guess I can say a closing prayer. All right. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and to those in the tombs he has granted life. We ask you, Lord, as you have risen on the 3rd day, that you would raise up our minds and our souls, and that you, the Word, would inspire the Word in others, and that we may bring this project to fruition, and that the minds of the youth may be educated, so that in seeing the truth in all things, they may discover you who are the truth. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father Demetrius, and thank you to everyone that has joined and to our Houston big siblings, our parents. Thank you so much. Liz has dropped and Emily have dropped the link to the survey in the chat. So if you have a moment to just complete that for us so that we can better serve our community, that would be wonderful. If nothing else, then everyone have a great night and we will see you all soon.